Today we speak to Stacey Faraoni from Georgia Express Auto Body Repair based in Margate in KZN. As part of the Collision Repairers Association of South Africa's Women's Month interview series. Welcome, Stacey. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks so much, Johan. Awesome to be with you.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Okay. When did you start your business?
We started Georgia Express in 2003. It was our third shop by that stage. We had already, previously to that, had Margate panel beaters and JL panel beaters, which my father-in-law subsequently sold. So this was the third shop that we had opened. And him and my husband opened it in 2003.
Okay, so it's been quite a while, 18 years of
quite a while,
successful business. Yeah. What was your mission at the start of the company?
I think our mission's always been, and it was very close to my father-in-law's heart, was to always pride ourselves to give quality and service. Throughout the years, whenever I worked with him before he retired, that was always his mission, quality and service, because it's the only thing that sets you apart in a very big pool when there's so many options. The one that gives the best quality and the best service for a fair price, back then specifically, would be awarded the work. Things have changed a lot, but we still always pride ourselves in giving good quality and service.
Okay, fantastic. Tell me, how many employees do you have?
38. Yeah, about 38 employees.
Okay, so it's quite a large shop that you have.
Yeah, I think we're a small fry, but if we're comparing it with the little guys, yeah, it is quite big. Quite big. At one stage, we were about 45. But now we're sitting roughly around 38.
Okay. Have you faced, as a business owner or in your career due to being women, have you faced many barriers? And if so, how did you overcome those?
I think predominantly the collision repair industry has always, the forerunners have always been men. So that always does pose challenges when you're a female, you're coming into a male-dominated industry.
Sure.
Yes, it is challenging. People don't take you seriously, especially assessors or other repairers that have been in the industry for a long time. Don't often take women seriously. I think the perception is that we don't have the technical knowledge, we don't have the background, and I've often been referred to as just, an admin clerk or a receptionist. So I think that barrier and that stigma has always been difficult to face and a challenge to overcome. But as people come to know you in the industry, as you deal with more assessors and more insurance companies, I think you do start building credibility. People then do realize, oh, she does know what she's talking about. She's not just a receptionist, but she actually has technical knowledge. She knows about the ins and outs of the industry. But I think in any male-dominant industry, that's always going to be a challenge for women. But it's to face it head on and be secure in who you are. That's the biggest thing, because otherwise you will be derailed. Yes. But to be secure in who you are and get as much knowledge as you can so that you can combat those accusations or that perception and stigma.
How long would you say it took you to actually get a good understanding of the market? And this is not literally referring to you as a lady, but anybody that actually enters a market that doesn't know the market, it takes time to actually get feel the waters.
Definitely. Do you know what it definitely does? I think our industry is also quite unique because it's influenced by so many other outer factors. We've got the insurance companies and manufacturers dictating to us, and then we're kind of in the middle trying to decide how are we going to do this thing. So there's so much legislation, there's so many requirements. So on top of just knowing the general how to run an auto body repair shop, I would say one would have to take a minimum of at least 5 years of intense, really throwing yourself into the technology, throwing yourself into what's happening in the industry before you can actually start to say that you know anything about anything when it comes to the auto body repair industry. Yeah. And it's constantly changing and transforming as requirements change, as legislation changes, as vehicles change. It constantly evolves, and it's just to keep yourself abreast of that. But I would say 5 years at least. Okay. At least.
What's the most challenging thing about the period that you are now, working in?
I think definitely economic climate has been a struggle for quite some time. I mean, if I look back at least 5 years, the economic climate of South Africa has been very challenging. The different shifting markets between insurance company, corporates have really become big as well. So corporatization I think that's changed the market a lot. So I would say, in general, the economic climate and just financially how South Africa has struggled where its economy has been. Then corporatization has been a huge challenge for the independently owned auto body repair facility. Yeah. And then triple BEE has been a huge challenge, and the perception of it and to get your mind around it, and the fact that it's only really acknowledged as being legitimate if you're a level 4 above. That's really been challenging. And then I would say the whole directional spend methodology, that's very prevalent now through insurance companies, and how that works. It's really challenging in our industry as an independent to constantly deal with those upcoming those upcoming changes and market trends. It doesn't make it easy, but it does makes one think out the box and challenges you and stretches you to see how you can still make it viable with all these external circumstances. And I think that's pretty much
what
the main one.
Technology, the change of technology. I mean, we're going with the ADAS and electric vehicles, and on the horizon you're talking about autonomous vehicles and all that type of stuff.
Yes.
That's going to have a massive impact on your industry.
I think it is massive, and I think it's huge, and it's concerning for the independent. I'm sure for the corporate as well, but very often the corporates have other pools and other things to pull from. It's not just their shop. Sure. Where independents rely predominantly on their own auto body repair facility, and that's all they do. Yeah. So when we're looking at the changing markets and the new technology coming out, it's very expensive. It requires huge investments and training as well. So when you're sending somebody overseas, you're looking between 50 to 150,000 to upskill your staff to be able to repair these vehicles and be able to repair these models. And with margins being so small, especially now with COVID and South Africa having junk status and the lowering of write-off, our write-off ratios and values dropping, it's making it very, very challenging to stay sustainable. And then also having the pressure of, guys, this is what you're expected to do. You're expected to progress. You're expected to change. That's what international markets are doing. You've got to stay abreast of that. Yeah. It's concerning, and I think it does create anxiety in panel shop owners. But it's the name of the game. So if you want to stay in, you've got to adapt, and you've got to take part. Otherwise, you're just going to be left behind. If you stay in the same place, you're going backwards. Right. That's basically it. But it's very challenging. It's very concerning.
I think, having spent some time, within the industry and, understanding the challenges, one of the things that's worrisome for me is not just the upfront cost with the technology, but, the continuous costs, because we now employ a much higher level of technical skilled person that comes at a price tag. So you're actually buying that in, and your labor force is going to increase, the cost of your labor force.
Absolutely. And I don't think, the perception of insurance companies, I don't think they're cognizant of all that goes into running a shop nowadays that is approved. The perception sometimes I feel is you've just got this equipment and you guys are making so much money, but no one really understands what goes into the back end and how much it really costs to keep a panel shop going and in line with the requirements. So very often when the new SLAs come and you see that there's not even been increases that are in line with CPR, or some insurance companies haven't issued increases for 2 to 3 years, it's increasingly difficult to stay sustainable in this industry. And the lack of understanding from the infrastructures that dictate to us, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
How have you been able during this, challenging times? How have you been able to keep your team together?
I think, one thing that I'll definitely say is that my husband is a very encouraging person. He's very positive. He's very inclusive. And we have meetings every single morning with our staff. To encourage them to touch base of where we're at, to touch base of what our objectives are and our goals are, but always trying to just keep the team together and trying to keep the team encouraged. Then even with our management team, we have meetings on a daily basis just to see where everyone is at. I think it's a good idea to evaluate and meet with your staff maybe like once every quarter to see where people are at. And to have that open door policy that if someone is really struggling, that we hear, we're not an island unto ourselves. We cannot do it without a successful team. We cannot do it without the staff underneath us. That's the reality. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. So to be, number one, encouraging, to be positive, even when the circumstances are tough, but to try and not let those allow or dictate to how you act and how you respond, but to try and stay upbeat, to try and keep your head above water. Because I think ultimately the head dictates what the body does. So if the head is negative and the head is discouraged, it's very challenging to then keep the body, which is, your management team and the staff underneath you, going at a pace and to stay encouraged. So, just having reviews with your staff, having an open door policy, not saying that you don't talk about the difficult things. You have to talk about the realities out there, but also just, I'm a firm believer that you've got to be good to your staff, that's just the bottom line. You've got to be good to the staff that you have that are good to you. People that are loyal, that look after you, you've got to be good to them. So that's pretty much, I would say, in a nutshell. Stacey. But my husband's definitely in the encourager. I'm the balls to the wall, what's the bottom line? He's the encourager.
Well, that's the sign of a great team. Each knows their strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's a winning team. Do you guys embrace diversity in your teams or in your team?
Absolutely. I think if we all mirror images of each other and we all have the same strengths, it's definitely going to be a very boring environment that we're in. And not one of us, I can't say that I have all the strengths that I need to run the company. My husband, the same thing. So I think there's wisdom to be had to embrace differences in people, diversification, whether it's Black, white, Indian, whether it's personal strengths and characteristics, and putting teams together where you can see that, okay, this person is strong in that person's weak in that, so let's pair them with a person that, say, is a strong leader, or somebody that is good in time management, but they may be very good in organization, but not in time management, So I think one has to, especially in South Africa, you've got to embrace diversification. We can't be stuck in the past. We've got to be progressive in that respect. And I believe it's the only way forward, It would be ignorant to think otherwise. It really would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the most important piece of advice that you've ever been given?
It's such a hard one to say. It's such a hard one. But I think it's definitely, don't let your circumstances and your experiences dictate to you and define you, because we all going to go through challenges, but it's how do we face those? How do we embrace them? What do we allow that to do within us? Are they going to crush us, or are they going to strengthen us? So that would be definitely one. And then to have perseverance. That's, one's got to persevere in this life. There's nothing really rewarding or worthwhile without sacrifice and perseverance.
Sure.
So you really, I think nowadays also in South Africa with the current climate and all the things that we're facing, one's got to have grit, and you've got to dig deep, and you've got to be able to persevere. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. That's the reality.
Never ever give up.
Yeah, just don't give up.
Yeah, sometimes it's very tough, but you know what? Exactly that, you're too big-headed to give up.
If people say it's not tough, I've got a question. Where have they been living? Do they live under a rock?
Or
because
it's definitely
tough. Yeah, give me some of those, because I need them. Yeah.
Tell me, is there anybody or anyone that inspired you in your career?
I think definitely I would have to say my father-in-law. He was a very hard man. He had great expectation of people. He was a perfectionist as such, but he taught me so much about ethics and about just business in general and about hard work. And I don't think we would be where we are as a company. And I don't think I'd be where I am as a person if I hadn't gleaned from those things. And they were tough lessons and they were hard lessons. And at the time, I didn't understand it because I was a young female coming into this business and it was hardcore. And I was like, what, But looking back now, all these years later, I realized it was so beneficial. And really, I would say that's possibly the person, definitely that I've been most encouraged by and sort of a role model as such. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, and at least he can see this now when you show him the interview. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me, what do you think we can do to make a lasting impact during Women's Month?
I think for me, especially when kind of in terms like we have with the riots and everyone has gone through COVID, there's been such loss. And I've seen that it's created in people that they have very little tolerance for each other. We really have very little tolerance for each other, and people's stress is elevated. Depression seems to be on the rise. is just kindness. You know, kindness and generosity go such a long way.
Yeah.
And to be considerate and empathize. We don't know what people are going through. You know, let's not be so self-involved to assume that we are the only ones with challenges and that ours are the biggest. But to really just consider others and consider what they could have been going through, what's their external circumstances that are affecting them. So to extend kindness and understanding towards one another, and then just generally, irrespective of what your deficit is in your bank account or what the losses that you've made in your business or during COVID, continue to be generous, because there's always people out there that are worse off than you. Do you know what I mean? And while it's not favored very much in the industry anymore, but just what you sow, you reap. I'm a firm believer of that. So what are you sowing? You know, let's sow hope, let's sow encouragement, let's sow generosity, let's sow kindness. You know, we can't go wrong. I'm sure when we get to our deathbed one day, we're not going to say, oh my gosh, I regret being kind and generous and loving and empathetic. I don't think we're going to do that.
No, that's fantastic. That is a fantastic way of looking at it. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Well, that's all for today, guys. Once again, Stacey, thank you very much for chatting with us. And
only a pleasure. Only a pleasure.
Yeah, best of luck with your shop, and I really hope that you guys are going to grow from strength to strength.
I hope so too. Against all odds, that's what's going to happen. That's what we're hoping for.
Fantastic, man.
Thank you so much, Johan.
Thank you so much.
And take care. Pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye.